we suffer in silence, and thus we don't allow someone to help us carry the pain. Hello again, everyone. It's Pastor Tom of the 24 Today podcast. Thanks again for listening in. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 26 says this, and by the way, it's talking about the church. It's talking about the group of people that you worship with. It says, if one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part rejoices with it. So Scripture here is saying that if someone in the church is going through a hard time, that one of the unique and beautiful things about a church is that it's a family. If you're going through a hard time, other people will go through that with you. And if you're suffering, they suffer along with you, and they help to carry that burden of pain with you. And it helps you as you're going through that. On the other hand, if you're going through a great time, if things are going wonderful, if you're rejoicing, 1 Corinthians says that the church is great because it's like a family of people that will celebrate with you. They'll feel good with you. They'll just laugh with you, enjoy this good time with you. So you have someone to just to feel good with. Now here's the thing that I've been thinking about today. If we don't share how we're doing with others, then the church can't really be the church. If we don't tell people if we're going through a hard time, and I don't mean that we have to broadcast it to everybody, but if we don't tell at least one person, if we don't have someone in our life that we share with, then we don't allow them to fulfill this scripture. We don't allow this reality to be true for us, that there's the church, there are people in our lives that care, that will help us to carry that pain. Or there are people that will celebrate with us, and they can't experience that joy with us, and we just don't have the joy of going through that with another person. I'm a big fan of baseball. I've played baseball when I was younger, and I watch baseball all season long when they're playing. One of the things that happens in the game of baseball, and I don't know if it's still this way today for kids, but when I was a kid, if you got hit by a pitch, like you were supposed to be a tough guy and not rub that area where you got hit by a pitch. If you got hit in the stomach or, an ankle, you weren't supposed to rub that part of your body just because you had to act tough. And what I've noticed is that even in the major leagues, they do the same thing. It's even more pronounced. I've seen people get hit in the elbow with a 95-mile-an-hour pitch, and they run on down to first base, and you can see them wincing in great pain. And sometimes the trainer will come out. They'll look at the elbow, and sometimes they'll spray this this stuff on the arm that apparently is to help with the pain. But that player will do his best not to touch that elbow, not to act like it's hurting, and not to rub it. And that's just the way it is, even in Major League Baseball. And it's also the way it is that we tend to be in life. We go through our pain a lot of times by ourselves. And sometimes we even go through joy by ourselves. And so we don't have the help that someone else can give us in carrying that burden. And then we just don't even have the real joy in celebrating with other people. even in our own church, even in places where people would really love to do that. We don't give them that opportunity, and we rob ourselves of that opportunity as well to get help and to be able to celebrate with someone else. In the book of Ecclesiastes, it says in chapter 4, verse 9, 2 are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. So Scripture reminds us again here, this time in Ecclesiastes, that we are not to do life alone. And it might be your tendency, as it is mine, that when we get hit with the pitches of life, that we don't rub that area and we don't tell anybody else about it. We suffer in silence. And thus, we don't allow someone to help us carry the pain. And even on the other extreme, we don't celebrate with others either. So my encouragement to you today is that if you're hurting or if you're rejoicing, tell somebody about it. Give them the chance to fulfill Scripture, to help you in the burden, or give them also the joy of being able to celebrate with you. And then do yourself a favor. Someone is there. Someone would like to be there to help you carry the burden. Someone would like to be there to celebrate with you. And I know that it might not be your natural way of doing things, but it is scriptural, and therefore it's the way you and I both should live. So make that phone call, send that text, go and talk to that person and share the burden or the joy. Appreciate you listening. We'll talk again next time. If this podcast has been helpful for you and you haven't already subscribed, just go to the subscribe button that you'll see on the page and subscribe. That way you'll make sure that you get everything that I put on the podcast the moment that it's available. And if it's helpful for you, it probably would be helpful for someone that you know as well. If you could send them a link or tell them about the podcast, and then also comment on the particular podcast wherever you're at. Rate it, if you will, and that will help others to be able to see and hear about the podcast.